What did you see on film that you learned from the game?
Quite a bit. We watched a lengthy film session this morning. Just a lot of cleanup. I think we just didn't have the disposition and urgency required. Let a team like that play to their strengths in transition. Some of that was predicated on our offense. We got static at times and turned the ball over. 14 for the game isn't terrible, but 22 points off those turnovers. We got to find ways to, get back and make a play. There's some positive stretches. We scored 120 points, so you're doing something right. Even if it's not to the efficiency that we want. But our tempo overall was a little slow. The overall shot process I thought was great. We just didn't make enough of them. But defensively, our disposition at the point of attack, just one-on-one in pick and roll, wasn't quite where it needed to be. And our urgency in transition, probably the two biggest takeaways from our opening night.
What adjustment would you like to see Bilal make from game 1 to game 2?
Just his level of communication. He was in the right spot a little bit, and had some plays. Had 2 terrific blocks just kind of late in the game, but just communicating, as he switches, on smaller offensive players, and, we switch quite a bit with him, 1 through 4, he's got to understand now the new assignment and have a little more heightened awareness to that person's strengths. You switch onto a shooter, you have to minimize your separation. Guys are really crafty at running and slipping out of coverage, being able to communicate that on the fly, and it's fast, but it was a good test for him, and I saw him get better throughout the course of the game.
You mentioned the tempo. When you guys talk about pace, it's getting into the offense earlier, right?
Well, it's basically our metric is, can we get the ball across half court by 21 on the clock?
Does that have anything to do, or how much does that have to do with the ball sticking when there are defenders in place then and you get confused?
Some of it. I'm not saying there's a direct correlation, but the quicker you can get the ball up and initiate your action, more often than not, you have an advantage. Defense, to your point, is not set, and you can start putting a lot of pressure on them early. It's tough to play half-court offense against a set defense, possession after possession. There's going to be some nights where teams get to the line and now they have an opportunity to set their defense. So being able to defend without fouling, take that into account, was not an issue the other night. But we've got to be able to get that ball in and up and put more pressure on the defense sooner. I think that's great for us. Allows us to play through the possession, gives you opportunities to strike on 3 sides of the floor, instead of just, to your point, getting static, bogged down, and now falling into one-on-one, which is not our strength.
What did you think the reason was for the sticking then?
Some of it was the switching, and then I think some of it was when things aren't going well. I don't think it's coming from a selfish place, but everyone thinks they can do a little bit more, and you kind of get away from, some of your strengths. I think everyone just tries to do a little bit more or thinks, I'll get us out of this situation, and oftentimes it compounds itself.
Teams present different actions on the offensive end, and I know defensively you said pick and roll and transition on defense will be your foundational focuses, but against Memphis, what specifics do you want to see done defensively?
Well, our level of physicality, we got to up that. They're a pretty physical team. They're going to play downhill offensively. They've got some big bodies, and they got guards who are going to try and attack our paint. So we certainly got to do a better job of filling our shrink spots, getting there early, and showing a crowd. And thought we got stretched a little bit the other night with their shooting. We started to hug up a little bit, which, once again opens up driving lanes, makes it really difficult to guard one-on-one. We got to get back to shrinking the floor, just trust our help. Big key is trust it, don't rely on it, but, we got to be in the right spot at the right time.
Wes, how tough is it for this team to protect the rim when Daniel is off the court?
It's obviously a strength of his, and he's got the ability to do it. I thought did a pretty good job the other night using his rule of verticality and blocking shots. The problem is, he's trying to protect, for everybody. So 4 of his 5 fouls were him, bringing help to situations, but once again, we weren't in the right fill spots. So that ball cracks the seam, it cracks the paint, and to his credit, he makes an effort to make a play.
In other words, he shouldn't have had to have...
Ideally, no. You don't have to be there time and time again, but his willingness to do it is a credit to him.
I mean, he had to do it
He had to do it.
because he had no other choice.
Correct.
The guys were there.
Yeah, we didn't do a very good job at the point, and we didn't do a very good job as far as getting to our shrink spots.
Memphis was the 5th best team last year at limiting opponent points in the paint. So how do you plan on scoring in the paint?
Well, I think it's that simple. No, I think you give them credit. Obviously, a little different look. Without Steven Adams back there, Jaren Jackson is still a live body, blocks a ton of shots, changes a lot of shots. His ability to switch on the smaller offensive players and keep them in front can cause a bit of an issue. I think we have to attack the paint, but attack to kick. They're going to swallow up all drives. They're going to make sure to bring plenty of help to the ball in the paint. We just got to be more mindful of when we do that. We've attracted help. We kick it out. That's going to open up more threes.
How you doing? I'm doing well. Wanted to ask you about 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗪𝗪's intangibles. Just the little things he's doing about leadership. What have you noticed so far through the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's taken another step in that direction. He's done it quite often thus far. Early in the season, preseason, throughout film sessions, just kind of adding his 2 cents and giving our guys a little bit more clarity. And it hasn't just been him. I think Tyus, JP, even Daniel, kind of coming out of his shell a little bit. But I think it's a great sign for this group that more and more guys are taking more onus, from within and trying to talk each other through situations. Doesn't mean it's always going to go right, but I think they understand the need to communicate, get clarity, and part of that too is being receptive to criticism, being receptive to coaching, not just from us, but from a teammate.
Also, kind of touching that communication aspect. A tangible piece is communication, can be overlooked sometimes, but how big is that piece going to be going forward for this team on the defensive end?
It's going to be big. I mean, I think on both sides of the ball, once again, we got a lot of newness out there. So you take it for granted at times, but half the squad is new. So that level of communication is even more important. You may call actions or find yourself in situations. 1 or 2 guys may have a feel, maybe 2 or 3 don't. They have to be able to articulate what's happening on the floor and talk guys through it. Mm-hmm.
I believe Delon was the first person off the bench, and you went with a 3 small lineup for a while. How much of that was predicated on the Pacers' strengths and their lineup and what they brought? In other words,
not
can
a ton.
we expect a 3 guard?
It's going to happen, for sure. It's going to happen. It was also, throwing Denny out there the first crack. He looked a tad winded, and so it wasn't planned that way. I think just once again reading the flow of it, and Ty I thought was playing well, so I wanted to leave him out there. Got Denny out to bring Delon in.
I think you guys had something like 20 assists in the first half,
Yes.
something like that.
8 the second, yeah.
Was that the product of good offense or the frenetic pace of that game?
I thought it was better offense in general. Obviously, in the first 3.5, 4 minutes, our tempo was great. I thought we were changing ends properly. That helped. And then, they got to some switching, and we started to kind of play one-on-one at times. And then you talk about assists. We didn't make enough shots kind of in that third quarter. That ties into the assist percentage, assist totals. So you don't want to forego the process, but obviously the result wasn't what we wanted.
How are your injured guys, Landry and Johnny Davis and Anthony Gill?
Yeah, they were, all full participants except Johnny, so that's a plus.
On your first stint in that game in Indy, that was almost close to 1 full quarter of play, I think, something like that, like a long stretch of minutes.
Yeah.
In terms of your wind, your conditioning, how much different, if at all, do you feel now at the start of this season compared to the start of last season?
I feel a little better conditioning-wise. I still have some room to improve. It was points in the game where I felt a little wind, legs a little heavy, but so I feel like I can, get in better shape.
Delon, what was your assessment of defense the other night?
Not good. Yeah, like a team defensive stand. We didn't do a good job of rotating. Gave up offensive rebounds. Transition was terrible. So the good thing is we know we can get better early on in the season. We can correct those things early. I feel like we can make some improvements throughout this year.
Delon, can you tell when things are snowballing defensively like that? Like, is it something that's conscious in the moment where you're like, things are not going the way they should?
For sure. Like after we score a basket and Buddy Hill walks into a wide open three, that's a guy at the top of our scouting list that we don't want to get him going. So, once you see that happen and you see other things happen, lobs happen, you kind of know that we're falling apart in certain areas.
How is this year when a timeout is called? How does the communication work before Wes comes and gives the instruction? Are you guys kind of talking among yourselves this year about maybe on-the-fly adjustments that you're seeing?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like even last year, if we feel like something is, especially if we're the ones calling a timeout, we obviously know something is going on. So we just try to, correct that amongst ourselves, and then, Wes or the other coaches are going to come in and, say whatever they think needs to change.
What does it take on defense? Is it more reps, or is it to communicate more, or what is the specific key? Because obviously another game coming up tomorrow, so is it just more game reps with one another to build that chemistry on the defensive side?
I mean, yeah, that has something to do with it. Also, effort. Some of the plays, we just weren't making the effort plays. We made one effort, and then we expected somebody else to cover up for us. Whether I was boxing out, closing out, not letting the guy go middle. I myself had a couple of those. Yeah, it's everything. You just have to want to, be out there and stop your man.
Where's your comfort level compared to last year, now being in your second year playing for Wes?
10 times better. It's been, people don't realize it's a difficult thing to start a new system every year, which I've done. So now I know what the coach expects. I kind of know my rotation. I know, the system. So I feel a lot more comfortable, this opening night than I did last year.
The guy isn't naturally defensive-minded, hasn't been doing that his whole life at basketball. You say it's just an effort thing, but that, I imagine, if you're an offensive-minded player, that's kind of hard to get in the mindset of. How do you teach that? How do you turn someone into a defensive-minded player if that's the goal?
I feel like if you're in the NBA, at one point you have to play somewhat of. You don't even have to stop your man. Just try to be in the right area. Talk. Everybody's not capable of probably guarding somebody one-on-one to the best, but you can be in help. You can shoot, even gamble for steals. Go gamble or something. I'd rather not just give up points and just run back in transition.
The last two Defensive Player of the Years are now on the same team with Memphis. I know that Steven Adams isn't there, but defensively, what do they look like now? If you've had a chance to look at them on film.
I really haven't had a chance to look at them. I watched their last highlights of last game, but if you have two all defensive players or Player of the Year, like you said, you're gonna have a good defense. So I just feel like we have to just try to pick them apart by moving the ball. That helps every team. So if we do that, I feel like we give ourselves a good chance.
What do you think would make a successful season for your team?
Me, I shoot for the stars, so making the playoffs. We can develop the young guys like we're trying to do this year and still make the playoffs. That's what I've always shoot for every year. At least make the play-in. That'll be a success. That way we can build on whatever the front office sees. So that's a successful season for me.
How you doing? Doing well. Coach talked about scoring 120, but what were some of the positives despite the loss that you saw that maybe can build off coming on for this Memphis game?
I feel like in spurts we moved the ball well. That helped us get back on defense. When we didn't move the ball, we were going one-on-one. Guys were falling, including myself. We made a fail down and created a 5-on-4. So when we were moving the ball well, I feel like everybody was in a good rhythm. And then once we kind of got stagnant, it led to the defensive end.
There's a lot of new parts, but how can you just explain how difficult it can be just to learn guys' spots as you go on? Like that's a key piece in basketball that I think others overlook sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're right. We're still learning JP, like what he likes to do. He makes adjustments to the offense, whether he likes to come down like a pin down, he wants to slip out. That's going to take time. So that's going to be an ongoing process.
Defensively, what do you think the main key
I think just being definitive in our calls. There are a lot of communication that we got going on, still trying to get really familiar with everything in terms of our rotations, in terms of our rhythms, but just making sure that we got the right calls and we're in sync with our communication.
You know, we've seen the scouting report kind of shifting towards Jordan Poole that he's like last preseason game and then opening night.
It doesn't feel different than what it felt a little bit of last year. I do see the defense pulled over a little bit more in protection in terms of help, in terms of the backside. The lanes aren't as open in terms of driving, but I saw a lot of different coverages last year as well. So we'll see as the season continues to go on.
How do you balance as a option 1, 1B, whatever you want to call it, pulling up, shooting, or seeing those lanes as small as they might be and trying to attack and get a call?
Just reps, just being able to be in that position. All the way up until my career, confident enough to be able to pull up and shoot the three if the defense is further back, but if they're too high and the defense seems as if they're in like a scramble or they're not set, just attacking the lane, going to the basket aggressively. A lot of help and a lot of rotations are coming over to kind of defend the basket, so just being aggressive, and if they call fouls, they call fouls. If not, just try to make it.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say your comfortability is so far with being on the team and your role?
Are we just talking on the court or are we talking off the court too?
How about A and B?
On the court, I'll say I'm probably at like a 7. 7 is good, but it's a lot of unique stuff, a lot of unique personalities, a lot of unique play styles that we have on this team. Just trying to unlock everybody, catch our rhythm, catch our consistency, our cadence. It'll come with time and reps. Off the court, 10.
𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗓 retired recently.
Yeah, shout out to Iggy.
What type of impact did he have on you as a young player?
Huge. I think he was one of the last players that kind of came from the era before. They were more on like the tough guy era, tough love era. It was just kind of good to have the conversation that I had with him while I was playing with him. Obviously, we still talk now. But he just kind of shared just so much in terms of approach, in terms of professionalism, in terms of African-American history, in terms of just wisdom and knowledge, just conversations that we would have just kind of over the course of our period together.
How do you judge the first game with you, 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪, the chemistry, and how that went on the offense?
Yeah, it felt good in terms of us three playing together. We had a really good first half run that we had kind of going into the end of first quarter, early second quarter. But like I said, it'll come with time. I think we're all unselfish players, so it'll be good to play off of each other. 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗡 is just really good at getting people in his spots and making the right play, and 𝗙𝗢𝗟 is just also really good at getting his own shot and being aggressive. So it's a really good dynamic that I think we can unlock something.
What do you mean when you say 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗡 is good at getting guys into shots? I know this is a dumb
Yeah.
question, but what does that entail?
Yeah, just his time management, game management, his control of the game, knowing what plays to call, what plays each player needs, time and possession, how they're guarding him, whether it's up to touch on the ball screen as a defender or if they're in a drop, knowing what plays to call if we want to get multiple actions as opposed to an ISO. So just a lot of stuff that we talk about, him being pretty heavy PG when we're in together, but also just figuring it out. We're all just basketball players, I think, which makes it a lot easier.
I want to talk about off the court.
Yeah.
Is your communication, getting your teammates kind of locked in, just being loose. Where is that kind of coming from on your end?
I mean, you just kind of need the chemistry off the court to perform really well off the court. It just feels more natural. You want to go out there and play for each other as opposed to with each other. Probably that's a big difference. Like if you know who they are as people, like what they like, you know, their motivations, like what gets them going, right? Those small things can mean so much on the court in terms of like their personality and who they are. So just trying to build that over and over with reps on the court, off the court is huge.
I know you said off the court. What are some of your like self-care practices that help you get through a long season?
I'm big on like meditation. I'm not gonna say I'm huge on meditation, but I'm big on like taking walks, mindfulness more so. Taking periods of just rest, grace. I mean, I'm super locked into basketball during the season, but you don't want to like essentially go in overdrive and burn yourself out. So kind of finding the right balance between just lifestyle, things that you enjoy to do, watch movies, kind of getting away from the game, but also just being locked in and, you know, trying to continue to learn on and off the court.
What's your approach to generating more free throws, knowing that you are one of the more accurate free throw shooters in the league?
Nothing. Just kind of continue to play my game. I feel like it's been something that I've been able to do in terms of a staple. Just get to the cup, be an elite finisher, both hands, floaters, pull-ups. Just be aggressive, and it also just opens up the floor for my teammates as well, knowing that they need to help and come over, but also just being able to spray the ball out and try to give them easy looks.
Jordan, what is required from you as one of the team's leaders after a blowout loss in the opener?
That's a good question. Yeah, just kind of reiterating that it's a long season. It's only game one, right? It'll be a lot of games where we win. It'll be a lot of games where we lose. And we just got to find ways to learn from that, get better, build our foundation, right? Figure out what it is that we need to go to in times of need, in times of duress. So, like I said, it's early on in the season, still kind of figuring everything out, building our foundation, but just reiterating that it's a long season, stay positive, continue to get better, and then we'll catch our rhythm and cadence. Yeah.
I've seen you wear sweatshirt sleeves.
No, yeah. See, but I still got the cut on me. You see me? I got the cuts.
You cut
Everything. No,
That would drive me nuts.
that's fire. No, I be on my farmer vibes. That's how I feel. I feel like a farmer, so.
Sure.
That's working. That's hard work. You feel me? Yeah, sometimes you just,
Till the land.
you know what I mean? You got it. There it is.